The EVPs were pretty chilling. My fears became real.
I knew that there was something evil in the house, and I was afraid for Scott, for his children.
My ghost story began after my father passed away in my home. My father moved in with me, and when he was at home, he was always busy doing something with his hands. He could fix anything you had broken. And when working, he liked to growl. Kind of a humming growl. We were just starting to get back together as a father and son relationship. When he died so suddenly, he was crossing the street and somebody hit him. After his accident, I tried to rent out his room several times, but folks just wouldn't stay because of the disturbances in the room. I was watching TV one evening with my son, and he says, "Look, Dad, look at," and he was pointing around the room as if he was following what he described as a red ball. And I said, "Son, I don't see it." And, "Dad, look, it's right there, and he would follow it around the room. This went on for about 30 minutes. Until he was almost in tears saying, "Dad, it's right there." When my kids are brought to tears, it's time to get some help. A coworker recommended Julie, so I gave her a call.
When Scott called me, he seemed like he was really scared, and he really needed somebody to come as soon as possible because he was afraid for his children. So I came that weekend. When I arrived at the house, I felt like there was somebody watching already through the window. I actually saw the blinds moving. Later, I found out that there wasn't anybody in the room. When I came up to the front door, I felt more than one presence. There was something almost sinister. It was a really scary, scary feeling. The moment I stepped in, it was like walking through electricity. It was like daggers. It was a very heavy, heavy feeling.
When Julie came in, she sat down on the couch next to me, and she had her cell phone in her hand. And as if somebody had a string tied to it, it was pulled out onto the floor.
I felt an electric shock go through me. I also felt like things were touching my legs and my feet and pulling my hair. It was a very, very discomforting situation. When I was in Scott's bedroom, I got a photo of red orbs that were traveling upwards.
To actually have a picture of the red orb was a shock to me because it validated what my son had seen and I didn't.
There's a very heavy presence in that room, like an angry presence there at all times. There was something evil, more sinister, more wanting us to get out of there. I couldn't spend more than 2 minutes at a time in that room. I had to keep leaving and then coming back to take a few more pictures because it's so heavy in there. From Scott's bedroom, I decided to go to his father's bedroom. When I walked in, I felt very heavy sadness and a lot of confusion. My head was constantly spinning, like I felt very dizzy. My friend and I decided to do a flashlight session, which I asked yes and no questions.
If you're happy where you are, can you please turn on the light?
In the middle of the flashlight session, my friend was standing by the closet door in the bedroom.
What?
There was a growling type noise there.
It was more like a grunt, like. At that point, I asked,
If you want us out of your room, can you please shut the light off?
I was like, we need to get out of here. This was really, really scary. And at that moment, he felt something odd on his side, so he pulled up his shirt and he had these scratch marks.
Julie came out of the bedroom in such a hurry. When we asked what was wrong, she said the closet growled at her. There is no way that Julie could have known about the growling because I hadn't told her.
We knew that we were dealing with the spirit of Scott's father, Steve, but it felt like there was something else in that room, so I wouldn't want to go back in there ever again. It was a very, very scary feeling. Scott had previously been told by a psychic that there is also a lady in the house, so we decided to do an EVP session in front of the father's bedroom. When I did a playback, it sounded like a voice saying, "Bitch, get the f*** out." And automatically I felt a push, like it didn't want me anywhere near that bedroom. I was frightened and I was afraid that something was going to attach itself to me. I also did another EVP a few minutes after that, and it said, "Get out," in a very demonic, very angry voice. I was afraid that something was gonna do more damage. I was afraid for Scott, for his children.
The EVPs, they were pretty chilling. My fears became real.
When I was taking photos outside, I was feeling like there was a manifestation of some spirit, something negative, and it was following me. I didn't really feel that it was Scott's father. I felt it was something more evil. The backyard was completely dark at that point. It couldn't have possibly been anything else. We scaled around to see if there was any lights coming through from other neighbors, stuff like that, but everything was pitch black. When I got home, I went to the computer and uploaded all the photos, and I saw what looked like a face to me. It was an apparition of Scott's father, Steve.
Julie and her friend didn't know what my father looked like. She did not have access to a picture of my father to fabricate that. That was probably the most disturbing piece of evidence that I have seen. I had a hard time going to that portion of the house because I was afraid that I would look over and see my father looking through the window again. It really startled me to know that he is out there looking in.
I think the spirit of Scott's father will leave once he is sure that nothing is going to happen to his family. But I'm also afraid of the other spirit in the home, which is very evil.
In the future, I would like to see my father's spirit be happy and move on. But for now, I believe he wants to stay in my home, and that's fine with me.